This is The Civil Fleet, the podcast focused on the activist-led refugee rescue and support missions across Fortress Europe, with me, Ben Coles. In this episode, we are going to talk with Italian journalist Lorenzo D'Agostino about the Global Sumud Flotilla. And if you don't know what the Global Sumud Flotilla was a civilian-led mission sailing across the Mediterranean to break Israel's illegal siege of Gaza and to deliver humanitarian aid there. Lorenzo is a freelance journalist and was reporting from the boats right from the start until it was kidnapped in Israel. So Lorenzo is going to tell us about the mission, he's going to tell us about the journey to Palestine's waters, to Gaza's waters, where they were kidnapped by the IDF. He's going to tell us all about the kidnapping. He's going to talk to us about what it was like in Israel and how they were mistreated by the police, and what it was like in prison, where he spent a couple of days being tortured by the Israeli prison guards. So yeah, it's a pretty deep episode, really interesting. I hope you like it. But before we get into the episode, I would just like to remind you that the Civil Fleet is not just a podcast, it's also a news blog. You can go to civilfleet.com and you'll find lots of news reports on there, investigative stories, some interviews, and all kinds of things. So go to civilfleet.com for that. Also, if you like what the Civil Fleet is doing and you want to help us to continue to platform the amazing people that we have had on this podcast, 81 episodes and each one is a banger. Amazing. And if you would like to help us to continue making these brilliant episodes, then there are a couple of ways you can do that. You can go to ko-fi.com/civilfleet. And when you go on there, you can make a small donation or a monthly recurring donation if you like. Our costs are very low, but any help you can give us will be greatly appreciated. And if you can't do that, no worries. What you can do instead is share us around, tell your friends about the episode, talk to your friends and family about it, share us on social media, like and subscribe on YouTube and all that stuff. And you can also give us ratings on podcast apps, bang that thumbs up thing on YouTube. That would be really helpful. Next month I'm going to be at the Anarchist Book Fair in Manchester, so come along to that if you like. I'm going to have some t-shirts for sale, I think. I might have some postcards, I'll definitely have some stickers. Come and talk to me if you like. That'll be really nice, and hopefully I can get some new listeners to the podcast there. All right, that is it. Let's get on with the show. All right, Lorenzo, are you ready?
I am.
All right, let's do this. Lorenzo, thank you very much for coming on the Civil Fleet podcast again.
You're most welcome. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's good that you're alive. It's good that you've survived this ordeal that you've just been through. And I'm really happy to speak to you again. Good. Congratulations on surviving.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I don't have much merits for that, but thanks, yeah.
So yeah, we're going to talk today about the Global Sumud Flotilla and your time reporting from there. We'll talk about the interception and your time in Israel and what's happened since then. Before we talk about all that, I'd like everyone to tell us a bit about themselves. We've met before in, I can't remember when it was, last January, I think, in Trappani. So that was good. That was great to meet you. And we did an episode a long time ago on the podcast. So yeah, tell us a bit about yourself, Lorenzo, and then we'll get into everything you've been through.
Yeah, so I'm a freelance journalist, and I've covered migration for a while, judicial issues of criminalization related to border policies. And, as you said, you hosted me on the Civil Fleet because I've reported quite extensively from search and rescue boats. And now this Sumud Flotilla was a new kind of civil fleet, which I find also a very interesting angle to see how, resistance to the wars that our Western governments are doing passes through sort of like civil disobedience at sea. So basically, when I learned that they were organizing the biggest so far, Flotilla to Gaza, since I had some experience at sea, also like, reporting from sea missions, I thought, you know what, why not? And I joined, and the rest is history that we can discuss here.
Yeah, did they, how did you find out about, I guess you were just following them and seeing, were they advertising for journalists on the boat and stuff? Is that how you found out about it?
Yeah, so, I've been following closely the Palestine situation, of course, as everybody, because it was just awful, and I've been actively looking for a way to be a bit more active on this, because, I'm not a Palestine specialist, but it comes to a point where it's not about your beat as a journalist, it's about your, the survival of your conscience as a human being, dealing with that situation. So I had started to follow quite closely the previous flotillas to Gaza. In May there was the Conscience ship that was literally bombed and sunk off the coast of Malta without any of our governments blinking, without the press really making a big deal about it. And then there was, of course, the mission of the Madeleine, where Greta Thunberg was for the first time on board. And then there was the Handala ship, and the Handala ship was just the mission previous to the Global Sumud Flotilla. And on that mission, there was a dude named Tony La Piccirella that played a very important role on the Sumud Flotilla. And he happens to be from my hometown, which is called Bari, a town in the southeast of Italy on the heel of the boot. And we had many friends in common, so I followed very closely what Tony was doing there. And when he got back, he announced on social media that they were looking for participants for this new biggest ever flotilla project. So I immediately applied. And I wasn't selected at first, but then I received a new email from the Spanish delegation, because I live in Barcelona, in Catalonia. So the Spanish delegation got in touch saying that they had a bunch of new spots available, and they were looking specifically for people with a journalism or communications background. So I said, hey, that's me. And so they offered me a place, and I joined the mission.
Yeah, it sounds like you. When I found out that you were on there, I thought, you're the perfect person to be on that ship.
Are you still there, Ben?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I think I lost you.
Yo.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm back. I had a VPN on, so I've turned that off, and hopefully that will stop slowing me down.
Okay.
So yeah, you were, just before it cut off, you were saying how you got on the boat. I heard everything, and then I was saying when I heard that you were on the boats, I thought it was like a perfect, because all that you've been reporting so much on the civil fleets and all of that stuff on migration. I thought, yes, he's a great person to be on this ship. So where did you get out? Did you start in Barcelona, or did you start in Tunisia, and which boat were you on? Yeah, so I actually participated to the whole mission from the very beginning to the end, because I boarded the Barcelona fleet. So I left on August 31, and then we've been kidnapped on October 1st. So on the night, I think, between October 1st and 2nd. So I spent a full month at sea. Sorry, I will get rid of my notifications. So yeah, I spent the whole month at sea on a little sailing boat. It was roughly 14 meters, called HIO, H-I-O. And I met the other participants at the very moment where I boarded, because so the flotilla steering committee took the decision, which, had its good side and its bad side. So they decided to basically let everybody discover who they would travel with and on which boat minutes before they boarded the boat. So I basically got on board and found out who I would be traveling with.
I guess they decided to do that in order to sort of like avoid last minute complaints or like changes of crew, of boats, people who would be unhappy. So that worked in that sense. In another way, it was a bit tricky, basically meeting the people you would be sharing a tiny space with for 1 month at the very moment you would start sailing. So, but it went pretty much all right for us. There was some minor conflict on board due to the nature of the mission that was very stressful and tiring. So especially towards the end, living together became a bit, we had to do some work on ourselves to stay cool and patient. But it was, we were really united by the goal of the mission that was really strong and bigger than any of us. So we made it work.
Yeah, like living with those people for like people you've just met for a month could be quite intense, and especially like sailing across the Mediterranean towards Gaza must have been crazy. And then so the flotilla, I think they kept picking up different boats along the way, right? And then did you stop go straight from Barcelona to Tunisia, or did you stop along the way?
Yeah, so basically we left on the 31st. And we immediately came back to port because there was a big storm that night, so we decided to sort of avoid it. So I basically had one extra night in my bed, but then on October 1st, we actually departed, and there was another storm. So that storm basically took out almost 30% of the whole fleet, because the boats were really scrappy, they were bought with donation money for... very small amounts, so they couldn't really handle a storm. That's why the boat that could still sail went on to the Balearic Islands. We stopped in Menorca and we waited for the other boats to catch up with us after, making some repairs. So we did a little stop in Menorca, then we sailed off to Tunis. In Tunis, the plan was joining with another piece of the fleet, the Tunisian fleet, because also, Tunisians had, the Tunisian delegation of the Sumud Flotilla had found some boats and they had their own crew. So we had to join forces with them. But then in Tunis, as you might be aware, the two biggest boats of the flotilla were attacked with drones, so that created another delay, and we had to stay in Tunisia for a few days before going home. I don't know if you want.
Did you see those drone attacks on the ships? I reported on it at the time, and I just thought it's unreal that these random drones would just drop bombs. It's just wild. Did you see that happen?
It's wild. So I didn't see the drones with my own eyes, because the first night we arrived in Tunis, the Malaysian delegation, which was quite an interesting story in itself, because Malaysia endorsed officially on a government level the mission. So the Malaysian delegation had a bit more money than the rest of us, so they decided to offer hotel rooms to most participants, looking forward to the very long mission that we would have ahead. So given that we had to stop in Tunis for a bit, they decided, okay, let's all of us have a hotel night so we can take a proper shower, have a proper breakfast. So most of us were actually on land when the attacks happened. There was just like a minimum crew on every boat to keep it safe. And on the first night, the family, which was sort of like the admiral boat, the main boat that hosted the steering committee, the most visible faces, sort of like, to speak, Greta Thunberg, of course, Tiago Avila, Tony, my friend from Bari. And so I couldn't witness the attack. I interviewed the crew just the day after, so they described to me, this flying object that came close and dropped an incendiary device that sparked the fire on board. That in both cases, both on the first night with the family and on the second night with the biggest boat, the Alma, they were very, very quickly put off. So, the crew was well trained. But the insane thing is that despite the video evidence showing basically a firebomb falling from the sky, on the first night, the Tunisian authorities said, no, nothing happened there. It was probably a cigarette butt thrown on the fuel by some of the crew that sparked the fire, which was clearly absurd. And on the following night, they were forced to say, okay, here something sketchy happened, and they opened an official investigation. So in the following days, the police interrogated all the eyewitnesses, all the crew, and then I read the story that Tunisian authorities made an arrest in the following weeks. They arrested a foreign citizen on suspicion of having actually organized that attack. So we'll see what comes out of that.
Did they say, I guess they didn't say where they were from?
No, they didn't.
I mean, I think it was so shocking, that attack. That you mentioned the one in Malta earlier, that was also shocking, and no one's claimed responsibility for it, I think. But everyone's pointing the fingers at Israel. And I think there was a story recently, I'll link to this, and I can send it to you afterwards if you've not seen it. I think it's in the Washington Post, maybe, where there was reports of Netanyahu saying that he'd ordered these bombings, which is crazy.
It's completely insane. Just how brazen they are in just attacking any sovereign country that they want. But the crazy part is that they seem to go completely unchecked and unchallenged in doing so. So. Yeah, I mean, there are a few boats in Tunisia that we don't like. We're going to bomb them within Tunisian borders, within an actual Tunisian port. The port of Sidi Bou Said, where we were anchored, is just like a few hundreds meters in a straight line from the presidential palace of Tunisia. So, just like flying drones into a sovereign country close to the presidential palace, dropping some bombs, the authorities in the first instance try actually to protect you. They try to blame the crews from the incidents. It's just it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that the level of impunity that these guys have.
Yeah, it's unreal. And I can't remember. I think one of those two ships, the Alma or the family, was flying a British flag, I think. And I contacted. I think it was one of those two ships. Is that right? Do you remember?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So I contacted the Foreign Office in the UK and the Department of Transport. I wasn't sure if that was the right department to contact, but I tried anyway. But neither of them responded to me. But yeah, I couldn't believe that my government didn't say anything about a drone attack on a ship carrying its flag. This doesn't. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Especially considering, the UK's own history of, how central it's always been for UK policy, ensuring the commercial fleets of the UK and, the freedom of navigation in the sea. That just shows the crazy double standard that happens when it comes to Israel. But, after all, Starmer has proved to be basically one of the biggest, staunchest allies of the genocidal regime. I've been following from afar, but the whole Palestine action criminalization is just insane. Seeing these old people arrested just for holding a banner, the UK has completely gone astray or stayed on course, because it's not like they are innocent in this regard when it comes to Palestine, not exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Crazy. And I just could not believe the silence. And they've still been quite silent. I don't think they've said much, if anything, about the Brits that were abducted to Israel either. I'm pretty sure they didn't say anything, at least not at the time.
Yeah, not a word. Yeah, on my boat, I was actually with a woman from Wales. She always wanted to state that she was from Wales, not from England or not from the UK, but at the end of the day, her passport was a UK passport. So I would have expected some level of protection from her for her from the UK government, and nothing came. Absolutely nothing came. She was actually one of the last ones to be released without any sign of official protest, anything. It's insane. Where like our governments no longer protect us when we interfere with their genocidal strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you mentioned, the protest group that's been banned in the UK. I'm not quite sure what I can say, but yeah, that's also a pretty crazy situation.
You probably cannot say the name and I support it in the same sentence, so let's not do it because I don't want to create you trouble. But just like think about it. I mean, we've come to the point where like pronouncing a sentence with a name of a protest group can land you into jail in what we claim to be the land of freedom and free speech. Like, what is this?
Yeah, that is crazy. It is bad. And I don't think, I'm not sure, but I don't think in other European countries they've taken as drastic measures. Do you know, have they done that in Spain or in Italy?
I'm not aware of anything going that far. There have been heavy crackdown on protests pretty much everywhere in Europe, in Italy in particular. Spain has also very tough laws. Spain has very tough laws when it comes to freedom of speech regarding the monarchy. So there are certain things that you're not allowed to say against the king. But just, like this thing that we've seen in the UK where they drag you to prison for holding a banner is something that I think is just beyond.
Yeah, and they're really cracking down on protest laws. They want to start charging people for things that you say on demos, on protests and things. It's just crazy time to be living here, I think. So let's go back to the Sumud Flotilla. These attacks happen, but it doesn't deter anyone. Like, how were the people on those ships? Were they shaken after that attack, or were they like when you interviewed them, were they nervous or were they just determined to carry on?
I mean, everybody was determined, and everybody said, we know what we were facing, so we're going on. This is certainly not going to stop us, and it didn't stop us. But at the same time, it's not like being bombed is something that leaves you completely unshaken. So thankfully there was psychological support offered by the organization. I'm aware that some of the people who suffered the attack in first person used it. But again, everybody in this mission, in the toughest moment, like to remind themselves, we're here for the people of Gaza. When we saw, the images of just the amount of actual bombing, like bombing meant to kill, not just to provoke a fire, that was falling on Gaza, that was a big drive to sort of say, okay, like I need to carry through, I cannot be stopped by a small incendiary device, because this is nothing compared to what these people are suffering, and that's what we are doing here.
Yeah, I think for me that would, if I was on those ships, that would be the scariest moment of my life. But for people in Gaza, it's just an everyday occurrence, and way worse. So yeah, I imagine that would really focus everyone and make it more determined. And so
that was a bit of our psychological survival device, saying okay, we cannot cave when there are these people who are, and that was also the meaning of the name of the flotilla. Sumud, the Arabic word that means sort of a resistance, resilience, but with an eye towards the future, towards making it better, improving. So I think it was a very, very fortunate choice of word, because it was just something that you could remind yourself in the toughest moments.
And then, what happened after the bombing? Did you sail from Tunisia to Greece, I think, after that?
Yeah, so then we went off to Crete. Again, we weren't, we hadn't planned for another stop. The idea after Tunisia was going all the way to Gaza, but then there was another big drone attack, as you might remember. So we were, and this time was actually like full-scale bombing that caught us when we were sailing in international water close to Greece, and it was just something else, for the whole night from roughly, I would say, 11 p.m. local time up until 4 a.m. in the morning. These drones carrying, again, incendiary device. There was a chemical attack. So on one of the boats, there was this like unidentified chemical substance that was dropped that was highly irritating, probably some sort of like gas. And then like actual bombs that destroyed some of the sails of the boats. And I counted at least between 13 and 15 that fell around the flotillas, some of them very close to my boat. And that was scary. I mean, that was really scary.
Yeah, I bet, because you said you were in international waters. You must have been way out to sea then. Like, there's no one there.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't see anything. The night was very dark. It was close to new moon night. And all of a sudden there were these like blinking red lights that came close, and then you heard a strong blast. You saw a flash of light, and then there was like this smoke rising from the sea. It was surreal. It was actually like being in a naval battle. I don't know. I mean, I've never been in one. I wasn't planning of being in one, but yeah, I guess that's how it must look like.
Yeah, but like God, that would like, and then were the ships? How many ships were damaged in that attack? Like you said, the sails on one of them. Did you have to get rescued at any point there, or what happened?
No, so that night there wasn't any rescue necessary, but one ship lost its mainsail, and another ship the mast was damaged. Now the interesting thing is that the ship that lost its sail was the one carrying 2 Italian MPs. So it's not like they are more important than the rest of us, but on a diplomatic political level, the choice, because it was certainly a choice, like Israel had mapped our flotilla very carefully. Since the very moment we left, we had drones above our heads. They didn't attack us, but they observed us. So it's absolutely sure that Israel knew who was on each boat, and the choice that they made to hit particularly directly the boat carrying 2 Italian MPs just shows how little they care. Probably they wanted to send a message, like we're not going to stop, not even in front of members of parliament that come from one of our main allies, Italy, and that strategy worked. Because in the following days, the Italian delegation in particular, and the Italian MPs in particular, were terrified, and they applied a lot of pressure on the rest of the mission to sort of like reconsider its goal, saying maybe we shouldn't carry all the way through Gaza because it's going to be suicidal. Maybe we could deliver our aid in Cyprus, and then from there have it delivered through a Vatican channel to Gaza. We really start to have those pressures that came from the Italian government, saying, because basically the Italian government realized that Israel was willing to hit members of parliaments from Italy, and the Italian government was unwilling to put any check on this sort of behaviors. So they started really to pressure us very heavily to say, like, look, we're not going to be able to protect you. Israel might even decide to kill someone on this mission, so you should turn back. And Italian MPs, despite being from the opposition, suffered a lot from these pressures and sort of like believed the threats and sort of like transmitted these threats to the rest of the flotilla, creating a very scary climate where, during a few days, I really thought there was a possibility of the flotilla sort of falling apart or losing pieces. And we did lose some crew members, but at the end of the day, I was really proud of the fact that we managed to keep it together and to sail towards Gaza up until the very end. So yeah, that intimidation didn't work either. Yeah, it's just insane that they even proposed it, because like the whole point of the mission was this, that Israel was using their official channels to deliver aid as a game to sort of like, almost. I'm using the word game, but that's the word that's being used by Israeli soldiers in anonymous interviews with the media, where they were saying that they were playing to shoot on desperate civilians and children lining up for food. So that's their official distribution of aid. Just another genocidal tactic to terrify the population. So the idea that they even considered to offer us a port in Israel, the port of Ashdod, to deliver the aid there so that they could distribute it again, to turn delivering aid into another tactic of extermination, it was, we couldn't receive that offer. So we said, no, we go straight. Then there was, this that I mentioned that came from the Italian government, this idea of having cardinals from the Vatican guaranteeing for us that the aid would be actually delivered to Gaza without passing through the IDF, by delivering it in Cyprus and then from there being brought to Gaza directly. But that, again, wasn't really credible. There was never a commitment from Israel to say, okay, we're going to let the aid through without, without touching it. And so, again, it was incredible. And just let me say something, because this thing that the flotilla didn't want Israel to interfere with the aid in any way, it's not just some... So basically, like at some point, there was this story that broke where in Italy, where the aid that was being officially delivered to Gaza through the official channels had to be checked by Israel, that removed everything that was too caloric. So they didn't want any cookies, they didn't want any honey, with the official explanation that they didn't want to give too much energy to the children. They wanted to keep them low energy. So, this is the kind of psychopaths that we're dealing with there. That is why the flotilla wanted to open an independent, autonomous humanitarian channel for the delivery of aid, because you just cannot trust the Israelis at any step in this process.
Yeah, they've proven themselves to be untrustworthy, haven't they? This whole genocide. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And and then I think I'm going to get events wrong here, but I think after that attack, there were huge protests in Italy, and there was quite a lot of pressure on the Italian government to do something to protect the fleets, to protect the Sumud Flotilla. And then they deployed one of their ships. I'm not sure, and I think Greece did too, but I can't remember now. But yeah, can you tell us about that? What happened there?
Yeah, so basically, that was just another farcical thing, because we have a Minister of Defense that sort of like wanted to distance himself from the rest of the government that just seemed completely prone to Israel, and he just wanted to show that after an attack on Italy's own member of parliaments, there would be a level of official reaction. So they decided to send us a warship to escort us. And they did escort us for a few days, and maybe that spared us a few more drone attacks. But then they also made it very clear that they wouldn't follow us all the way into Gaza, but not even into, the proximities of the Palestinian border, because they said, we're going to abandon you at 150 miles from shore, because from there on, we cannot protect you. Now, the people who listen to your podcast are probably at this point familiar with the various legal borders that exist at sea, but just to remind it, 12 miles is territorial waters. Then you have 24 miles, which is contiguous area where there is a certain degree of sovereignty from the states. Then there is, of course, the illegal blockade that extends from between 20 and 50 miles, maybe 60 sometimes. But this idea that 150 miles away from the coast of Gaza, Israel has already a free hand to basically do anything they want to the ships that approach the area. And Italy, an ally of Israel, basically says they're entitled to do so. If they attack you within 150 miles, we cannot protect you. It's just insane, because they're basically saying that Israel, in the same way they grab whatever land they want, they can also grab whatever piece of sea, international water they want, to do whatever they want. So it's just another thing that I just cannot get my head around,
Yeah, and Israel was using its drones to follow you off of Spain, and it bombed you in Tunisia. It doesn't give a shit about other borders, does it?
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, and then I was really weird when the Italy sent its warship, because I think I think it was August. I've just done an episode on the Libyan Coast Guard attacked one of the refugee rescue ships in the sea, the Ocean Viking, and they said after they were attacked, they were trying to get away from the Libyan Coast Guards who were shooting them, and they contacted an Italian warship near them and asked for help, and they ignored them. And I just thought, this is crazy. One case they could people doing the refugee rescue, the Italian warship doesn't give a shit, but now there's pressure on them. They'll send it to this thing, but to the flotilla. It's good that they did that, I suppose, but like you said, it was very qualified help. They're not going to help you after 150 meters.
Yeah, because on one hand, it was good because they did ensure us a couple of days of safe sailing. But on the other hand, if by doing that they basically, they set the precedent that 150 miles from Gaza, Israel can do whatever they want to anybody they want, then it's not really help. Then you're actually weakening international law instead of strengthening.
Yeah, and also we should say that the water off Gaza doesn't belong to them anyway, right? It's Gaza, it's Palestine's waters.
So yeah, if they wanted to respect international right, they would have escorted us all the way through Gaza into Palestinian waters and have us deliver the aid directly to Gaza. That was the only legal thing to do. Also,
this is going back a bit, but launching an attack on MPs, putting MPs in danger. If that was Russia or China or some other state that's not very friendly with the West, this would be war now. It'd probably be World War III.
Yeah. In the very same days, there was the story that broke of the Russian drones that were, I think, I think they were brought down in Poland. And that was a huge deal. And, rightly so, because Poland is in the European Union. Russia shouldn't use their drones against Poland, obviously. But just the double standard, because, that was a massive main headline throughout the world, because it was rightly understood as something that could spark World War III, whereas just Israel does whatever they want, wherever they want, and nobody says a thing. Like it was like an activistic thing to complain about drone attacks in Tunisia, drones observation in Spain. We seemed like we were sort of like fanatics that wanted to be protected from like warfare in our own European territory from a third state. It's just insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So then tell us about the journey from Greece to the point you got intercepted. Like, and then there's another person who joined the flotilla. I don't know if you've ever met them. Iasonos Astor something. I'm going to butcher his surname. But he's been on the Silver Fleet as well a long time ago. So at this point, I realised you were there, I think. So, so what happened when you got more ships joined you in Greece, I think, and then you headed towards Gaza.
Yeah. So after Crete, we basically kept going without stopping anymore. The navigation was peaceful up until to the point where first the Italian warship let us know by radio that they were abandoning us. They said, we're not going to escort you further. Any participant who wants to leave the mission now, they can. We're going to take them on board. As far as I know, nobody accepted this ridiculous offer. And so we went forwards. And then shortly after, we received another warning by radio, this time from the Israeli Navy, saying that they had put up a blockade, that the blockade was lawful, that trying to sail through it would be a violation of international law. It's just like ridiculous that they feel entitled to quote international law to sort of protect their actions at this point, but they're clearly shameless, so they did, and that we should stop there. Again, they offer the port of Ashdod to deliver the aid. So they said, you can sail to Ashdod, deliver the aid, and then leave. To this offer, to call it somehow, Tiago Avila, the main spokesperson of the flotilla, replied by radio saying that international right was on our side. I mean, there is a recording of this radio exchange that is very worth listening to. You can find it, I think, easily online. Maybe you might want to include it in the podcast because it was a beautiful exchange. Like Tiago really spoke powerful words to the effect of basically we are going. We are not stopping to your illegitimate orders.
Hi, this is Editing Ben here. This is the clip that Lorenzo just mentioned. We're going to hear it now. The first voice that you'll hear is from the Israeli military. Then we're going to hear Tiago Avila respond to them. Here's the clip.
In an active war zone. If you continue and attempt to breach the naval blockade, we will stop your vessel and act to confiscate it through legal proceedings in court. You bear full responsibility for your actions.
Attention, Israel Offensive Forces. This is Tiago Avila from the steering committee of the Global Sumud Flotilla. We advise you that we are a humanitarian, non-violent solidarity mission to break the illegal siege imposed by Israel 18 years ago against the Palestinian people in Gaza and to create a humanitarian corridor. We carry only food, aid, we carry water filters, we carry crutches, we carry baby formula for the people that you've been starving to death. I repeat, you've been committing genocide for 8 decades and ethnic cleansing against the Palestinian people, and that is absolutely against international law. Once again, we are in international waters, which is not your jurisdiction. We are heading to Palestinian territorial waters, which is not your jurisdiction, despite the fact that you think you can occupy that land, but all of this is completely illegal. We are here with the conscience of the world, moving peacefully in a non-violent humanitarian mission to take this aid. You are not allowed by international law to stop us, therefore we do not comply with your request, because your request is still an attempt to perpetuate the genocide of the Palestinian people.
Okay, we'll go back to the show. Here's Lorenzo.
And so we went on. And when we went on, then that very night we were boarded by armed thugs with their face covered that boarded all of our ships one by one. The one I was on, Hio, was boarded at 2 a.m. 5 soldiers, very young. They must have been between, 18, 21 years old, with very big rifles. They boarded us. On my boat there were 5 women and 4 men. The oldest participant was 65, the youngest 22. And you could almost say that one of the soldiers felt a bit ridiculous by such a display of force against such an peaceful people. Then one of the soldiers, to our little satisfaction, he started to vomit. He basically was seasick for half of the interception, so it was just like taken, put out by the sea, and then we sailed with them for a full day. So from 2 a.m. up until 6 p.m. the following day, they hijacked the boat towards Ashdod. We were with them so for a long time, and I have to say, they didn't behave violently towards us. Like once they took control of the ship, they just most of the time they just napped. Like they made for themselves nice beds with using the life jackets, and they slept the whole time. Then when we were approaching Ashdod, they took control of the ship themselves, because up until that point they were just giving us orders and we were keeping sailing the ship. But the real sort of nightmare started when we got off board.
So just on the ship, like when I saw videos, and there's videos all online of them coming on, and it was totally absurd to me that they were coming on your ship with these massive guns, and you guys have got nothing. You're just civilians, it was a perfect encapsulation of why it was so wrong as well, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, part of the point of this mission, sadly, I have to say, was sort of like showing how violent and how completely oblivious of any international law and justice these guys are, and showing it when they use their brutality towards European white people, because the West is completely anesthetized to violence against Arabs, especially, and people from the global South, the Arab world. They seem not to care about the violence against them. So part of the meaning of the mission was to show to the world that we can also be victims of the same kind of violence when we sort of like challenge that system of oppression, and then the public is more ready to believe our stories than the stories that come from the Palestinian people. That's really a bit sad. Like that's probably the sad part of the story, the fact that there was a genocide that went on for 2 years. And especially in Italy, people really started to wake up only when the flotilla came into the scene. But again, I mean, if it was useful to have people understand what kind of people we are dealing with in Israel, then so be it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it also like. It just, by going out there and do this, and you because you were unarmed civilians as well, and I think that kind of it made a lot of people realize like, fuck, like Israel is just not like, they don't care. They will do, the government is going to do whatever it wants to whoever they want, and I think you exposed, like you said before, like they don't seem to have any, like there's no consequences for their actions, whatever they do, they just get away with it because no one holds them to account. It's just what a time to be alive. And then so when they were on the boat, when the soldiers were on the boat, did they allow you to get up and eat, go to the toilet, this kind of thing, or did they just did you just have to sit on the front of the ship while they sailed you towards Israel?
Yeah, no, they did allow us to eat, go to the toilet, drink. They were actually almost they were actually very keen to show that they were behaving in a humane way towards us. They almost went out of their way to be polite towards us. They provided us with shade, etc. But not every boat had the same behaviors. So when I was in prison and I could share my experiences with the other crews, some of the other crews were actually handcuffed on the boats and left in the sun for the whole trip without being able to use the toilet or eat. So I guess it was pretty much down to the group of soldiers that dealt with you. But in general, I had the feeling that the IDF had been given the order to be as human as they could towards us. With the police, it was a very different deal. The police had clearly received the order to be as nasty as they could, and nasty they were.
Yeah, so tell us about, so when they took you to Ashdod, was it, the port of Ashdod? And then what happened when you got there?
So when we got there, the soldiers left the boat, and we were left on the boat for a couple of hours, probably before they let us off board. So during those 2 hours, we were already we were again in a bit of a high mood because we had been able to chat with each other because, with the soldiers on board, they prohibited us to speak to each other, so we had to stay silent. And so we had a couple of hours where we could recover some good mood, speak to each other. And so when I left the boat, I was almost relaxed again. But immediately, as soon as my foot touched the ground, I had my arm sort of turned violently behind my back, and I felt a head on my head that sort of pushed it down, and there was this cop that very violently dragged me towards a little sort of concrete square where they left us sitting or kneeling because they said if you look up you're gonna have to kneel, or if you speak to each other you're gonna have to kneel or stay with your foreground touching the concrete. So immediately after we left the boat, they started with this very bad treatment and humiliation techniques where we were left sitting or kneeling on this concrete floor for many, many hours, during which the cops would come and either hit us randomly, strip us of any symbology of recalling Palestine. I mean, that was the moment where everybody was wearing either a t-shirt or shoes or a bracelet or anything really, even vaguely resembling the flag of Palestine or a Palestine symbol was taken from us. And the really ridiculous thing is that the cops not only wanted to get rid of those symbols, they actually have to humiliate the symbol. So if someone had a Palestine scarf, for example, they took it from you and then they jumped on it or they spit on it like little children. It was something really sad to watch, but sad for them because, you really had the impression of dealing with little children with very big guns.
Yeah, that is bizarre behavior, right? And that's the kind of thing someone would do while they're carrying out a genocide as well. That is crazy.
Yeah, there was one person of the mission. She's a Spanish influencer, very vocal regarding Gaza. So she was sort of singled out, and she had to kneel in front of the flag. So like she was set aside from the rest of us, and the massive Israeli flag was put in front of us, and she had like to kneel in front of it and constantly watch it, which is the same thing that they did with Greta Thunberg, like they always surrounded her with Israeli flags and took selfies with her, and just like, I really don't think they realized how, I hate to make this comparison, but it just looked Nazi, like this prominence of the flag that people had to watch and to kneel upon. And it's just, I mean, if I don't want totalitarian, to say the least.
Yeah, fascist as fuck, right? Very, very fascist thing to do, yeah. And so did they do any of this stuff to you? They got rid of my Palestine scarf, t-shirts, bracelets. My bracelets weren't even Palestine. They were just like some random bracelet, and they sort of like removed them quite violently from me, because they were trying to break it when it was clearly impossible to break it. So, for example, the girl beside me, she was actually dragged on the floor for like a few meters with like three guards that, three guards like dragging her on the floor to sort of like break her bracelet. So, there was a lot of violence. I tried to stay as quiet as possible, because my priority was to sort of like observe and memorize the details. And I didn't want to be hit. I mean, at that point, I was honestly a bit scared. That was probably the most scary part. Even because that is when Itamar Ben-Gvir, the security minister of Israel, came to do his little said propaganda stunt with us. And so he came, with cameras, taking selfies, and he had to show to his own public opinion that we were being treated like terrorists, as he had promised to do. So in front of the guards, in front of the minister, the guards wanted to show that they were really, really tough on us. So I passed the border checks when Ben-Gvir was there, and that meant that I was handcuffed in a very, very tight way, with those plastic handcuffs, which are quite painful when they're tight, because, they stop blood circulation, and they really go deep into your skin. And we were left like that on a metal police van for up to 3 hours, I think, with very, very strong air conditioning. So we went from a very humid, hot weather into this police van with super cold air conditioning, and we stayed there handcuffed for many hours. I was lucky enough at a certain point that a very strong Scotsman came into our van, and he managed somehow to free himself from the handcuffs. And then he freed all of us. So after 1 hour or so, my circulation was able to my blood was able to flow again through my hands, but it was very unpleasant. And then we were brought to prison, and in prison, just like this script went on. So they continued with this sort of stuff. They left us without medicine. There was a Turkish guy who was in the cell with me, and his arm had been broken. It was clearly broken. It was swelling, and it was bigger each hour. And they left this guy without painkillers for 2 days. We had an epileptic guy who was also left without medicine. There was a guy who suffered from asthma, also without medicine. So they decided to really treat us like terrorists, as they promised they would do. Yeah, and something I meant to bring up earlier is like whilst you were still whilst the flotilla was sailing to Gaza, I think the IDF or the Israeli government put out a statement saying that you guys were Hamas, and they kept referring it to the Hamas flotilla, which is like that. It's also insane, completely like not the truth whatsoever.
It's almost childish again, like just the level of the thing they would come up with. I mean, I highly encourage your listeners to go and find those posts on the official Israeli accounts, because like the sort of documents that they put out to show that we were the Hamas flotilla almost looked like 4chan memes. They're not even, they don't even look like documents. They would just like put out the picture of someone on the flotilla and say, exposed, Hamas member, but where's the evidence? Nowhere. But they just say things at this point. But the thing is that all the propaganda machine from our own governments, from our own, pro-Israeli press, they just take everything they say at face value. So they just know that they can say things without any evidence and nobody would question them. But thankfully, I think that the population at wide, the public at wide, see through these techniques at this point. Like nobody is really ready to believe what they say. That is why they need, to crack down on TikTok, on social media. They need to control the press because normal people see through their propaganda these days.
Yeah, they're losing the propaganda war. Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why the Israeli government is buying TikTok, which is pretty sinister. So there's loads I want to ask, and I'm conscious of time here. Are you doing okay for time?
Yeah, I have a few more minutes. I'm more concerned about your listener because we have just now. We have completed a full hour now.
Well, so my podcasts are often an hour, sometimes longer, but I think what you're telling us is really important to hear. So, can you talk to us about, I can't remember the name of the prison, but I think it's quite an infamous prison. Like, tell us a bit about there and then how you got released.
Yeah, I have to say, I also cannot help you with the name of the prison because we weren't told the name of the prison we were in. So we were actually, we just didn't know where we were. We were put sort of in this hole and left there. I think Kedziot, then I read it on the press, but I'm probably mispronouncing it. Anyways, again, the sort of treatment we got from prison guards there was similar to what we got at the port, so very rough. Every time we moved, we were dragged around and pushed. But rather than focusing on the mistreatment that we suffered, which is, a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the mistreatments that Palestinian prisoners and hostages suffer in these same places, I would like to focus on the absolute unrest that we brought into that prison. Like, we were really, really undisciplined because at some point we realized that these guys were ready to humiliate us, to leave us without water, to leave us without medicines, but they were not ready to physically harm us. They were ready to do other kinds of tortures, the kinds that don't leave sign on the body because we were sleep deprived because for the 2 nights I spent in that prison, every hour or every couple of hours, the police guards would come, wake us all up, point rifles at us. In some cells, not in my own, but I could hear them. They went into the cells with barking dogs. So that's of course a form of torture, sleep deprivation. But when we realized that they wouldn't actually hit us, we started to really give them hell. So we would sing Free Palestine, Bella Ciao, knock on doors to demand our medicines. And you could really see that they were uneasy with that situation, that in other circumstances they would have just destroyed us physically, but they couldn't. And why couldn't they? Because the last pictures that I was able to see before the interception at sea was of a spontaneous mobilization throughout Europe, and especially in Italy, it was massive, of people taking to the street. And there was at certain point this dock worker from Genova in Italy who said, if they touch the flotilla, we are gonna block everything. And they kept their promise, because while we were in jail, there were massive demonstrations in our solidarity throughout Italy, and that was protecting us basically in prison, and that gave us the freedom of actually confronting these bastards. And I want to focus on this because this is a new power that we discovered that we have, that through mass mobilization we can actually put some checks on the barbarity of Israel, that the checks that our governments never wanted to put, but it's in our hands to put it. So in the same way that the people showed us solidarity and sort of like protected us in jail from the mistreatment of the guards, we can apply the same solidarity to all of the Palestinian people and to the Palestinian prisoners who are still in those jails, to sort of like form a shield from them. And that is something I really want to stress. Like we discovered with this new flotilla, we discovered that we have much more power as unionized worker, as people who are willing to take to the streets, than we previously thought we had. And we need to keep using this power to actually end the genocide and end the occupation.
Yeah, like it was, in some ways it's totally fucked up, but it was like amazing to see. Like when I was looking at pictures of the protests in Italy and of the dock workers blocking the ports and stuff, and it was just amazing. It was really inspiring. And actually I just spent the last weekend at a festival in the UK called The World Transformed. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of, it's like they get lots of left-wing speakers to come on. It was in Manchester where I live now, and maybe I've just doxed myself there. But it was really, it was great. And they had people there speaking from the Palestinian diaspora in Manchester, and there was a guy speaking there from the Italian group, which I can't remember the name of. It translates to like young Palestinians or something like that. And like everyone at the World Transformed, I heard people talking about it. A few different speakers, they were just so inspired by how Italy managed to do this and rise up. And I think that's probably, like you said, one of the reasons that kept everyone safe. And it drew massive attention to what was happening as well. Like people here, everyone, like a lot of people here were talking about what was going on in the British media and online and stuff. So yeah, it was great. I just wish the unions in this country could pull their fingers out and do something like that. But I don't think it's quite going to happen. But I don't know if you know, but I think it was more like the grassroots unions in Italy that started it. And then they forced the bigger trade unions, the more bureaucratic ones, I suppose you could say, into taking action as well. Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. For once, there was a mass mobilization that was actually led by the more radical elements, and the more uncertain, moderate had to follow through because just the people was with them. So it was beautiful to see, and especially as an Italian, because Italy has been so passive in the last couple of decades that nobody really expected to see this. And that makes me a bit proud as an Italian, for once, after, all of those years of Berlusconi, fascist governments, just like welfare cuts and mass unemployment without any sort of like big reaction. And then this came and surprised everybody. And we really want to keep it going.
Yeah, I hope it keeps going. It's like fantastic. And I hope it gets the unions here inspired as well. So yeah, did you? And before we talk about your release, like when you were captured by the Israelis, when you were grabbed by the police, did you say I'm a journalist, or I don't know? It's kind of I don't know what I would say, because also they just killed journalists, it's particularly Palestinian ones. Like did you think about, do I need to say this or not?
Yeah, we shouted. When we were boarded, we shouted, we're all civilians, we're unarmed, I am a journalist. But they just shouted back at us, be quiet. And so we were quiet, because at that point we had laser pointers from the rifles on us. So you definitely obey the orders you get in those circumstances. But then, during my detention, I was taken out of my cell with another group of people, and we were actually interviewed by a judge. So we were interrogated, and we were questioned, for judicial purposes. and we didn't have a lawyer there, and we didn't have a consular assistance, and they were trying to extract information from us without giving us our, legal rights. So in that circumstance, I answered the first two questions. We was like, how are you feeling? And I said, thirsty, because I was left without waters. And then the judge said, did you know that you wanted to illegally enter the territory of Gaza? And at the point I said, where is my lawyer? And he said, why are you not willing to answer that specific question? And I said, look, I'm a journalist doing this job right now. And until I see a lawyer, this is the last word I'm going to say. And then, they let us go. But just the insanity of trying to question all of us without a lawyer, it's just like, it just shows that they don't give a damn about law, about rights. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the organization. There was a group that was working with what was it called?
Adala, yeah, they are great. They are Palestinian lawyers with Israeli citizenship, and they were great, but we could only see them for 30 seconds at the port, just enough time to be notified our 100-year entry ban into Israel, and that was it. Then when we were actually questioned by a judge for judicial purposes, they weren't allowed in.
So what happened after you spoke to these lawyers, the judge, you refused to speak, and then how long was it until you were released?
No, we were just brought back into our cells, and then the following morning, the first bunch of us was released, which was most of the Italians, most of the Turks, I think all of the Malaysians, plus some other citizens from Arab countries and the US, but not all of them. And then in the following days, they released the rest of us. The people who stayed longest, I think they spent as much as 10 days in detention.
And is everyone from that mission out of the jails now?
Yeah.
Indeed, there was another flotilla straight after you, so Freedom Flotilla, I think it's called.
Yeah, there was the Freedom Flotilla, then there was the Thousand Madlin. Yeah, there are a bunch of organizations sort of launching flotillas toward Gaza, which I think is great because, this cannot stop until the siege, the legal, inhumane siege is on. So some of those guys are still in prison now, yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully they get released very soon. And then I saw, I think most people that were part of the flotilla, they were deported to Turkey, Istanbul, I guess. And I saw a video of Greta Thunberg arriving there, and there's just hundreds of people in the airport welcoming you. Did you see that? Were you part of all that?
So I wasn't deported with Greta, but my own deportation flight. So first of all, our flights were paid for by the Turkish government because Italy refused to pay one single cent for us.
Bastards.
Yeah. So from Israel to Istanbul, we actually got first-class treatment because Erdogan wanted to turn this deportation into a bit of a propaganda stunt for himself. Because, he's being quite an ally to Israel, but at the same time, he has a public opinion who is very much against Israel. So he decided that the deportation of the flotilla was a good opportunity for a bit of propaganda, which he did. But I also have to say I was sort of grateful to the Turkish government to be treated nicely at last after so much time, because the Turkish government also provided us with clothes and shoes upon arrival, because I've been deported just in the prison suit with flip-flops and my passport, nothing else. The Israeli literally stole everything. My press card, my credit card, 40 euros in cash that I had with me, my books, my notes, my clothes, my bags, everything. So yeah, the Turkish government provided that with clothes. And then when we arrived at the terminal, there were people with flowers for us. So I was given some flowers, and there was shitload of people treating us undeservedly like heroes. But that was the beautiful thing of the flotilla, that everywhere we went, in Barcelona, in Menorca, in Tunis, then in Greece. There would be spontaneous mass solidarity demonstrations with people thanking us for what we were doing. So you could really feel that the people of the world stand with the people of Palestine. And so it was really heartwarming. And also when we then landed in Rome, there were hundreds, I would say, of people waiting for us at the Fiumicino airport, from the unions, from my own newspaper. My people came to see me, my parents, of course, and heartwarming stuff.
Yeah, that must have been really surreal, moments. The videos I saw in Turkey, it was like the Beatles in the 1960s had arrived or something.
Yeah. No, surreal for real, even because, I'm a journalist. I'm more used to be on the other side of the cameras. I'm the one who bothers other people for interviews, and all of a sudden, people want to hear from me. They are inviting me in schools to speak to students, newspapers, of course, like public speaking events. It's insane, but it shows, that the people want to know how we can resist to the arrogance of our governments and of Israel's. And so I also feel compelled to sort of speak to anyone who requires my attention.
And then I think I got maybe one more question, maybe two. You, just before you got intercepted and kidnapped by the Israeli soldiers, you wrote this article, which I thought was really good. And I included some of it in a story on the Civil Fleet. I hope you don't mind. And just tell us, I don't know if you want to go into the whole stuff about, I can't remember which newspaper it was. An Israeli newspaper asked you to write something and it all went crazy. But just tell us, what were you thinking when you wrote that article?
Basically, in the very final hours before the interception, I was contacted by this opinion editor at Haaretz. Haaretz is sort of like the Guardian of Israel. So it's like the voice of the liberals, but not a voice that breaks with the establishment. So they do a lot of important journalistic work, but they're still part of, the Israeli establishment in a way. So this editor got in touch saying, look, do you want to write an opinion article sort of appealing to the people of Israel to support the flotilla, explaining why the people of Israel, it's important for them to support this sort of peaceful civil disobedience movements. And I thought about it for a minute, and then I said, you know what? Okay, let's do it, because I do strongly believe that dialogue is important, and it's never, it's always worth trying to put forward your message towards any public that is willing to listen. So I said, sure, let's do it. But she had already changed her mind, saying, you know what? Because she had said, we need to act very quickly, because I'm hearing news that the interception is very close, that the military boats that are going to kidnap you already left port. So I was okay, I'm ready to write this very quickly. But then she said, you know what? It's Yom Kippur now, the religious holiday of Israel. It's about to start. We don't have much time, so I don't think nobody would care about an article like that. Maybe we keep it for later. And I'm for later when? We're going to be intercepted in 2 hours. If you want to appeal to the people of Israel to support the Global Sumud Flotilla, you have to do it now. And she was but then, I had second thoughts, and, nobody would read the story. And so that really drove me insane, because I was how fucked up it is that a society, would just completely be oblivious of this flotilla situation, that the fact that they were mobilizing a big chunk of their navy to kidnap us, and this liberal editor thought it was just pointless to sort of put this message forward. So I just wrote the story on my own, and I made a comparison with the Italian resistance, because Italy in the 20th century also became complicit, became the author of a genocide. We participated to the biggest crime against humanity of the 20th century, which was the genocide of the Jewish people, in alliance with, of course, the German Nazi state. But then, a small minority, like the society as a whole was complicit with this. But then a minority of the Italian people put up what we call la resistenza, the resistance, where the song Bella Ciao comes from. And they fought against the Italian genocidal state, and they were ultimately able to save the soul of Italy and to guarantee to the Italian people decades of freedom and prosperity, but to the Italian people, not to the Italian state, because the Italian state back then was the Italian monarchy, which had colonial borders that included, Libya, Albania, Somalia, and that state had to end for the Italian people to prosper. And I just think that the case is the same for Israel today. Israel needs to put up a resistance against its own genocidal state, and the state of Israel, as we know it today, needs to end to make way for a new political construction that allows, in that part of the world, for the peaceful living together of Jews, of Muslims, of Christians, of atheists, of people who are in other religions or in no religion, to live together in equality of right. So, I really think that for the Israeli people to be free and safe, they need to put up a resistance against the Israeli state, and they need to do it right now. It's already a bit too late, but it's never too late in a way. So that was sort of the article I wrote, and I hope somebody could take my words into consideration in Israel.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, it does seem like, well, it's not even a radical thing to say, really, that Israel is an apartheid state. Like, there's so many, like, Amnesty International, so many charities that I wouldn't say particularly radical, but they would say, that this is an apartheid state. It's like South Africa, but probably much worse. And I think people who survived the South African apartheid have said, who have been to it, seen what it's like in the West Bank and Gaza, have said it's worse. Yeah, and I when I saw what you'd written, I thought it was really good, and I couldn't believe how you'd been fucked around by Haaretz, or Haaretz. I'm not quite sure how you say it, but yeah, that was just so, like, fucking hell. Like, I'm about to be kidnapped. Do you want this article or not? Like, it just terrible. So yeah. Was there anything else, Lorenzo? Like, I feel like I could keep talking to you for ages, and I hope we get to meet again in person at some point. But before we end here, is there anything else you want to say about this situation?
No, I mean, I think I've really been quite comprehensive. I guess I'll speak to you again the next time I board on some crazy mission on the sea for some other reason. Hopefully not so soon. I think I need a bit of a rest from the sea for a few months at least. Also, my family needs it because what really made me feel a bit guilty about this whole situation is that, like, I knew what I was doing, I knew what I was facing, but like my loved ones had a bit of a stressful times, as you can imagine. So I'll do some work on land for now.
Yeah, write some easy stories, something nice.
Yeah, maybe some restaurant reviews or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think you ever do that kind of stuff there, right? It's almost like me. It's just always depressing stories only.
Yeah, no, I don't. And to be fair, like now we're joking, but this so-called peace deal is a fucking sham. Israel is still keeping murdering people in Gaza just on a lower intensity. So it's not like we can really stop covering this stuff. We cannot stop advocating for this situation and informing the public about this. Like, I'm just deluding myself with the idea of resting. I'm actually gonna have to work quite a lot.
Yeah, it's still ongoing, right? And even if the bombs aren't falling as frequently, the genocide is still ongoing. And I heard that there was a death of another journalist there recently. They just keep murdering us. It's fucked up. It's just totally fucked up. Well, on that cheery note, Lorenzo, let's end the podcast here. It's been really, really great to get you back on here again. Thanks for talking to us, mate. And I hope you do get a bit of a rest before you get back into it.
For sure. Always a pleasure, Ben. Give it up.
That was episode 81 of the Civil Fleet podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks again to Lorenzo for coming on the podcast, for telling us all about that, and for just being a general legend. Thanks, mate. I hope I get to see you again soon at some point in Europe somewhere. Right, at the end of the episode, I'd like to remind you to check out the Civil Fleet blog. If you go to civilfleet.com, you'll be taken to the website there. You can find news reports, you can find investigative stories, and you can find some interviews on there as well. So go to civilfleet.com for more on that. Also, if you like what the Civil Fleet is doing and you would like to help us to continue to platform these amazing people, then you can do so by going to ko-fi.com/civilfleet. And on there, you can make a small donation or a monthly donation. It's like the price of a coffee. And that will help us to keep the lights on. That will help us to keep producing these episodes. The podcast's costs are really very low. But any help that you can give me will be greatly appreciated. So that's ko-fi.com/civilfleet if you want to help. Also, share us around on social media, tell your friends about it, tell your parents about it, and you can give us ratings on podcast apps. That would be really helpful too. Oh yeah, if you are in Manchester on the 8th of November, I will be at the Manchester Anarchist Book Fair. It's a book fair, but somehow they've let me come there with my podcast, my totally intangible product, which you can check out there. I'll have some t-shirts. I think I'll definitely have some stickers, might have some postcards, just general crap to give to people and hopefully to promote the podcast. So come along if you're in Manchester. Anyway, I think that's it from me. We've definitely got another episode in the can, and we'll have some more coming for the rest of this year. So cheers. Goodbye. See you later. Bye-bye.